Hi guys, we're headed into romance territory with this week's finished book, The Art of Love. Here's an excerpt from chapter 1. After 4 years at university, I was on my way to making my dreams into a reality. Top of the dean's list, successful art show at the local gallery as part of my final project, a promising future ahead of me. I'd proven my chops to my professors, even if not yet to myself. They thought I had what it took, so who was I to argue? Then it all fell apart because I met Ken. Ken, the new chef at the restaurant I was working at. He was hired quickly after the old chef had a heart attack. The old guy survived, but couldn't work the long hours anymore. Fresh out of culinary school, Ken was sassy from the moment he walked through the kitchen door. "Anything for you, darling," he'd say to me with a wink whenever I asked for a meal on the fly. My best friend Natasha and I would giggle over him as we worked side by side in the front of the house, serving customers burgers and fries. Both of us flirted with Ken, and he flirted right back. It seemed for a while that he would lead us on for the rest of our time working together. But then, one night, he asked me out. He picked me, little 22-year-old me. We started dating. He'd take me to fancy restaurants, bars, the works. After a year, I moved into his apartment. Another year and a half, and he proposed. God, I was happy. Insanely so. Especially as we set the wedding date for a year down the road and started planning for the big day. One thing that bothered me was that Ken didn't think my artwork was worth pursuing, no matter how much I told him I loved it. "But baby, you're great at your job," he told me with an earnest expression that could melt rocks. "Besides, nothing goes better than a waitress and a chef. Why would you want to be a starving artist when I feed you so well?" That was true, at least. He was happy to cook lavish meals at home nearly every day. We never seemed to do much else. Our lives revolved around food and drink. I agreed to put a pause on my art, and I never suspected a thing. Not until a week before the wedding, when my phone vibrated in my pocket the middle of my shift. I didn't bother to check the text. If it was my mom, I'd call her back after my work was done for the day. Anyone else could wait. Boy, should I have taken the time to look at my message, because after I finished my shift and all the side work and finally remembered the message, it was too late. "Meet me in dry storage," the message read. That was weird. Why would Ken want to talk to me there? I headed through the back, but the kitchen staff had already cleaned up and gone home for the night, Ken included. We usually had different shift hours, so it wasn't that unusual. I went to the dry storage pantry, hoping to find what he'd want me there for. But what I found instead sent chills down my back. I took a quick picture and texted it to him with a question mark. Maybe my suspicions on finding a used condom on the floor was just pre-wedding jitters. I've been having those a lot lately, and I didn't know why. But I couldn't help but think of the message that I'd never answered in the middle of my shift. Did he want to have a daring escapade at work but realized I wasn't coming? If so, what was up with the condom? The silence stretched out as I swiped on the screen every few seconds. For some reason, he wasn't looking at my text. Wasn't responding, although he usually seemed to have his phone glued to his hand. Instantly, I regretted sending the message and not stopping to think first. I was sure there must be a perfectly logical explanation. I just had to have him tell me what it was. When I got home, I was even more puzzled, because no one was there. My phone pinged, and I pulled it out of my back pocket. Email notification from Ken. That's odd, I thought, clicking it open. Why hadn't he just texted like always? But when I began to read, I knew why. Texting was too direct. This was my Dear John letter all wrapped up in a nutshell. "Miriam," the note began, "I think you know what that picture means. I was going to do this later when the moment felt right, but you sort of rushed me here. We need to break up. I haven't been satisfied with the two of us for a while now. Then I met someone else. Someone who supports me the way I am and isn't trying to change me into something I'm not. Since I met her, I know what's been missing between us. So I'm taking a few days away to give you time to sort things out. When I get back at the end of the week, I'd like you to have packed up and left. I wish you all the best." Oh my God. I sank down onto the living room couch and stared at the wall. Just to check that I hadn't imagined it and this was all a bad dream, I read the note again. Nope, not imagining anything. My engagement was over a week before my wedding, and I was now homeless to boot. My thoughts spun in slow circles, but I knew enough to realize that I was screwed. Just not in the way that involved a fun secret meeting in the dry storage closet at work. And it wasn't until I showed up for my shift the next day, and both Ken and Natasha didn't, that I realized what had been going on right under my nose. The two people closest to me, and I hadn't even suspected anything in the slightest. Holy hell. I felt like the biggest idiot on the planet. Terrible way to end an engagement, isn't it? But things will soon pick up for Miriam when she decides to turn back to her art. She might just find love along the way. Next week, I'll be tackling book 2 of this 3-book series. Tune in tomorrow to find out whose story I'll be telling next in the small town of Bobbins.